I caught my partner cheating. What would you do if you discovered that the person you trusted most in the world had been living a double life behind your back? According to recent studies, approximately 20 to 25% of married individuals admit to having extramarital affairs, and for those in committed relationships, the numbers climb even higher. These statistics represent more than just numbers. They represent shattered trust, broken hearts, and lives forever changed by betrayal. The morning light filtered through the bedroom curtains as Sarah stared at the phone in her trembling hands, her world crashing down around her in the span of a single text message. The notification had appeared on her partner's phone while he showered. Innocent enough at first glance, but the words burned themselves into her memory. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Love you, the senders. The name wasn't hers. For 3 years, Sarah had shared her life with Marcus, believing they were building something beautiful together. They had talked about marriage, children, and growing old side by side. They had survived long-distance periods, family disagreements, and financial struggles. Through it all, she had trusted him completely, never once questioning his loyalty or commitment to their relationship. That trust, she would learn, had been misplaced. The discovery hit her like a physical blow, stealing the breath from her lungs and leaving her feeling dizzy and disoriented. The bathroom door was still closed, the sound of running water masking what would become one of the most pivotal moments of her life. In that instant, everything she thought she knew about her relationship, about Marcus, about herself, crumbled into dust. The emotional turmoil that follows the discovery of infidelity is unlike any other form of heartbreak. It goes beyond simple sadness or disappointment. It strikes at the very core of one's identity and self-worth. Sarah felt as though she were drowning in a sea of conflicting emotions, each wave more overwhelming than the last. First came the shock, a numbness that seemed to protect her mind from fully processing what she had just learned. Her brain struggled to reconcile the Marcus she knew, the man who brought her coffee in bed every morning, who remembered every important date, who told her he loved her every single day. With this stranger who was capable of such profound deception, the shock quickly gave way to anger, a burning rage that coursed through her veins like fire. How dare he do this to her? How dare he make her feel special and loved, while simultaneously giving that same attention to someone else? The anger felt empowering at first, giving her strength when she felt weakest, but it also frightened her with its intensity. The anger lay a deep well of sadness and betrayal that threatened to consume her entirely. This wasn't just about the physical act of cheating, it was about the lies, the manipulation, the way he had looked into her eyes every day while living this double life. Every "I love you," every shared laugh, every intimate moment now felt tainted by his deception. Perhaps most devastating of all was the confusion that clouded her judgment. How had she missed the signs? Was she naive, stupid, or simply too trusting? The questions multiplied in her mind, each one more painful than the last. She began to doubt not just their relationship, but her own ability to read people, to trust her instincts, to navigate the world of romantic relationships. As the initial shock began to wear off, Sarah found herself analyzing every aspect of their relationship with the clarity that only hindsight can provide. The signs had been there, she realized, subtle at first, but growing more obvious over time. She had simply chosen not to see them, or had explained them away with the kind of creative reasoning that love makes possible. Marcus had become increasingly protective of his phone over the past few months, keeping it face down during their conversations and taking it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. When she had mentioned this behavior, he had laughed it off, claiming he was trying to be more present and less distracted by social media. At the time, his explanation had seemed reasonable, even admirable. His work schedule had become more erratic, with frequent late nights and weekend obligations that hadn't existed before. He worked in marketing for a mid-sized company, and while his industry was certainly demanding, the sudden increase in client dinners and team-building exercises should have raised red flags. Instead, Sarah had supported him, even feeling proud of his dedication to his career. The physical changes had been subtle, but noticeable to someone who knew him intimately. He had started paying more attention to his appearance, buying new clothes, experimenting with different colognes, and spending more time at the gym. When she complimented these changes, he had said he was simply trying to take better care of himself for her. The irony of that statement now made her stomach turn. Their intimate life had changed as well, though not in the way one might expect. Rather than becoming distant, Marcus had seemed more passionate, more adventurous, introducing new techniques and positions that left Sarah feeling confused but pleased. She had attributed this to their growing comfort with each other and his desire to keep their relationship exciting. Now she wondered where he had learned these new skills and whether the passion she had felt was genuine or simply guilt-driven overcompensation. Communication experts and relationship therapists often emphasize that infidelity rarely happens in a vacuum. It typically develops gradually, with small compromises and boundary crossings that eventually lead to full-blown affairs. Dr. Jennifer Martinez, a couples therapist with over 20 years of experience, explains that most cheating partners don't wake up one day and decide to betray their significant other. Instead, they find themselves in situations where emotional connections develop with others, and those connections gradually become more intimate and secretive. The digital age has made infidelity both easier to engage in and easier to discover. Dating apps, social media platforms, and messaging services provide countless opportunities for people to connect outside their primary relationships. At the same time, the digital trail left by these interactions often becomes the evidence that exposes the betrayal. In Marcus's case, the affair had apparently been going on for several months, as Sarah would later discover through their shared phone bill and social media accounts. He had been in regular contact with a coworker named Jessica. What had started as professional collaboration had evolved into late-night texting sessions, then lunch meetings that extended well beyond their scheduled time, and eventually into the full-blown affair that Sarah had just uncovered. The other woman, as Sarah learned through her own detective work in the days following her discovery, was recently divorced and new to their company. She was attractive, successful, and according to her social media profiles, adventurous and spontaneous. Everything that Sarah, in her most insecure moments, felt she was not. The comparison was inevitable and devastating, leaving Sarah questioning not just Marcus's loyalty but her own worth as a partner. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to repair. Relationship experts often compare it to a piece of fine china that has been shattered even if you manage to glue it back together. The cracks will always be visible, and it will never be quite as strong as it was before. This metaphor resonated deeply with Sarah as she struggled to imagine a future where she could ever fully trust Marcus again. The statistics on relationship recovery after infidelity are sobering. While some couples do manage to work through the betrayal and emerge stronger, many others find that the damage is irreparable. Success often depends on factors such as the length and nature of the affair, the cheating partner's willingness to take full responsibility for their actions, and both partners' commitment to the difficult work of rebuilding trust. For Sarah, the most challenging aspect wasn't just dealing with the betrayal itself, but navigating the complex web of emotions and decisions that followed. Should she confront him immediately? Should she gather more evidence first? Should she simply pack her bags and leave without a word? Each option seemed to carry its own risks and potential for further heartbreak. The moments ticked by as she sat on their bed, still holding his phone, the shower still running in the background. Her mind raced through their shared history, searching for clues she might have missed, moments that might have warned her of what was coming. Their last vacation together, just 2 months ago, suddenly took on a different meaning. Had he been texting Jessica while they walked hand in hand along the beach? Had he been thinking of her while making love to Sarah in their hotel room? The violation felt complete and absolute. It wasn't just that Marcus had been physically intimate with someone else, though that was devastating. Enough it was that he had shared emotional intimacy, inside jokes, secret moments, and possibly even future plans with another person, while pretending to be fully committed to Sarah. As the shower finally stopped, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Rather than confronting Marcus immediately or pretending she hadn't seen the message, she chose to wait and observe. She needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal before deciding how to respond. This decision would lead to several of the most difficult days of her life as she struggled to act normally while her world crumbled around her. The next few days passed in a surreal haze. Sarah went through the motions of their daily routine, sharing meals, watching their favorite shows, making casual conversation, all while feeling like she was observing someone else's life. Every kiss felt like a lie, every "I love you" like a knife to her heart. She found herself studying Marcus's face, searching for signs of guilt or deception, but he seemed as loving and attentive as ever. This normalcy was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the entire situation. If Marcus could lie so convincingly, if he could compartmentalize his life so effectively that his affair didn't seem to affect his behavior toward her at all, then what did that say about the authenticity of their entire relationship? During this period of painful observation, Sarah also began to notice things she had previously overlooked. The way Marcus's mood would improve after checking his phone. The subtle smile that would cross his face when he thought she wasn't looking. The distracted quality of his attention, even during their most intimate moments. These small details, insignificant on their own, began to form a pattern that confirmed her worst fears. The weight of keeping this secret began to take its toll on Sarah's physical and mental health. She found it difficult to eat, her sleep was restless and filled with nightmares, and she struggled to concentrate at work. Her friends and family noticed the change in her demeanor, but she wasn't ready to share what she had discovered. The shame she felt, though entirely undeserved, made her want to handle the situation privately until she could figure out her next steps. One of the most insidious aspects of discovering infidelity is the way it makes the betrayed partner question their own reality. Sarah found herself wondering if she was overreacting, if perhaps the text message had an innocent explanation, if maybe she was jumping to conclusions. This self-doubt is common among people who have been cheated on, as their trust in their own judgment has been shaken, along with their trust in their partner. Experts in psychology call this phenomenon gaslighting, though in Sarah's case, it was mostly self-imposed. The mind's natural tendency to seek the most palatable explanation for traumatic events can lead people to minimize or rationalize clear evidence of betrayal. Sarah caught herself making excuses for Marcus, even as she gathered more evidence of his infidelity. 3 days after her discovery, the truth became undeniable. While Marcus was in the Shuora, cruel repetition of how this nightmare had begun. His phone buzzed with another message from Jessica. This time, it included a photo that left no room for interpretation or rationalization. The image was intimate and clearly recent, based on the clothing she had seen Marcus wearing just the day before. The evidence was overwhelming, and Sarah knew she could no longer avoid the confrontation that would change everything. She screenshot the messages, not out of vindictiveness, but because she needed proof for her own sanity. The gaslighting she had imposed on herself had been so complete that she feared Marcus might somehow convince her that she had misunderstood what she had seen. That evening, as they sat down for what would be their last dinner together as a couple, Sarah made her decision. She waited until Marcus had finished eating, until he was relaxed and unsuspecting, before she placed his phone on the table between them, with Jessica's message clearly visible on the screen. "We need to talk," she said quietly, her voice steadier than she had expected. The moment of confrontation arrived with all the dramatic tension of a climactic scene in a movie. But the reality was far more complex and emotionally devastating than any fictional portrayal could capture. Marcus's face went through a series of expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, panic, and finally, a kind of resigned acceptance that told Sarah everything she needed to know. The silence stretched between them for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Sarah watched as the man she had loved for 3 years transformed before her eyes from her trusted partner into a stranger she didn't recognize. The Marcus she thought she knew wouldn't have been capable of this level of deception, but the evidence was undeniable. "I can explain," he finally said, the words tumbling out in a rush. But even as he spoke them, they both knew that no explanation could undo what had been done. No words could repair the trust that had been shattered. What followed was perhaps the most emotionally intense conversation of Sarah's life. Marcus alternated between denial, minimization, justification, and remorse, sometimes within the span of a single sentence. He claimed the affair meant nothing, that it was just physical, that he still loved Sarah more than anything. He blamed stress at work, problems in their relationship that Sarah had been unaware of, and even Jessica herself for pursuing him when he was vulnerable. Each excuse felt like another betrayal. Not only had Marcus cheated on her, but now he was refusing to take full responsibility for his actions. The man she had trusted with her heart, her future, and her deepest vulnerabilities was now trying to manipulate her, even in the moment of his exposure. Sarah found herself responding with a clarity and strength that surprised her. The shock and confusion of the past few days had given way to a crystal-clear understanding of what had happened and what needed to happen next. She didn't scream or throw things, though part of her wanted to. Instead, she asked direct questions and demanded honest answers. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. "About 4 months," Marcus admitted, unable to meet her eyes. "Do you love her?" The pause before his answer told her everything she needed to know, even before he said, "I don't know. It's complicated. Are you planning to leave me for her?" "No, of course not. This doesn't change how I feel about you." But it did change everything, and they both knew it. Trust, once broken so completely, couldn't simply be wished back into existence. The foundation of their relationship had been built on honesty, commitment, and mutual respect, all of which had been destroyed by Marcus's choices. As the conversation continued, Sarah learned details that made the betrayal even more painful. The affair had been ongoing during significant moments in their relationship. Marcus had been texting Jessica on Sarah's birthday, had been with her the night before Sarah's job interview when she had needed his support, had been thinking about her during the romantic weekend getaway they had taken to celebrate their 3-year anniversary. The revelation that made Sarah feel physically ill was learning that Jessica knew about her. This wasn't a case of Marcus being single and deceiving. Another woman, Jessica, was fully aware that he was in a committed relationship, and she had chosen to pursue him anyway. The betrayal felt doubled, as if the entire world was conspiring against her happiness. Perhaps most devastating of all was Marcus's admission that he had told Jessica things about their relationship that he had never shared with Sarah herself. He had complained about their sex life, criticized Sarah's career ambitions, and shared intimate details about their private moments. The violation felt complete. Not only had he been unfaithful physically, but he had been emotionally disloyal, in ways that cut even deeper. The confrontation lasted well into the night, with both of them cycling through anger, sadness, desperation, and resignation. Marcus begged for forgiveness, promised to end the affair immediately, swore that he would do anything to make things right. He spoke of couples therapy, of taking time apart to work on himself, of proving his commitment to their relationship. But Sarah had already made her decision. The trust that had taken 3 years to build had been destroyed in a single moment, and she knew that she would never be able to look at Marcus the same way again. Every time he was late coming home, every time he checked his phone, every time he claimed to be working late, she would wonder if he was lying. That was no way to live, and it certainly wasn't love. "I want you to leave," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying the weight of absolute finality. Marcus's face crumpled, and for a moment, Sarah felt a stab of sympathy for the man she had once planned to marry, but the sympathy was quickly overwhelmed by the memory of his betrayal. The knowledge that while she had been planning their future, he had been actively destroying it. The next morning, Marcus packed his belongings while Sarah sat in their living room watching him dismantle the life they had built together. Each item, he took his books from their shared shelf, his photos from their refrigerator, his clothes from their closet, felt like another small death, another piece of their relationship being erased. The practicalities of separation are rarely discussed in the immediate aftermath of discovering infidelity, but they are no less important than the emotional aspects. Sarah and Marcus had to untangle 3 years of shared finances, possessions, and commitments. They had to cancel the vacation they had planned for the following month, divide up their shared belongings, and decide what to do about the lease on their apartment. These mundane tasks were emotionally exhausting in their own right. Every shared purchase became a reminder of happier times. Every joint decision now seemed naive in hindsight. The coffee maker they had bought together after their first big fight, the couch they had spent weeks saving for, the artwork they had chosen together to make their space feel like home, all of it now felt tainted by the knowledge of Marcus's betrayal. The weeks following Marcus's departure were a roller coaster of emotions for Sarah. Some days she felt strong and empowered. Other days she was overwhelmed by loneliness and grief, mourning not just the relationship she had lost, but the future she had imagined with Marcus, well-meaning friends and family members offered advice that ran the gamut from "you're better off without him" to "everyone makes mistakes" to Maybe you should consider couples therapy." While Sarah appreciated their concern, she found that most people couldn't truly understand the complexity of her situation unless they had experienced betrayal themselves. The support group she eventually joined became an invaluable resource. In her healing process, hearing from others who had walked this path before her helped Sarah realize that her feelings were normal, that her decision to end the relationship was valid, and that she would eventually be able to trust and love again. One of the most challenging aspects of recovery was learning to separate her self-worth from Marcus's actions. The voice in her head that whispered, "If you had been enough, he wouldn't have needed someone else," was loud and persistent. It took months of therapy and self-reflection for Sarah to understand that Marcus's infidelity was about his own character and choices, not about any deficiency in her as a partner. The healing process was not linear. Just when Sarah thought she was making progress, something would trigger a memory or emotion that would send her spiraling backward. Seeing couples holding hands on the street, hearing a song that reminded her of Marcus, or even something as simple as receiving a text from an unknown number could transport her back to that morning when her world fell apart. Professional counseling played a crucial role in Sarah's recovery. Her therapist helped her process the trauma of betrayal, understand the patterns in her relationship that she might want to avoid in the future, and develop strategies for rebuilding her capacity for trust. The work was difficult and sometimes painful, but it was essential for her long-term emotional health. One of the most important lessons Sarah learned was that healing from infidelity is not about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't matter. Instead, it's about integrating the experience into her life story in a way that allows her to move forward without being defined by the betrayal. The goal was not to become the same person she had been before. An innocent trust could never be fully restored, but to become a stronger, wiser version of herself. 6 months after the confrontation, Sarah received a text from Marcus asking if they could meet for coffee to talk. He had ended his relationship with Jessica, he claimed, and had been in therapy working on understanding why he had made such destructive choices. He spoke of personal growth, of taking responsibility for his actions, and of his hope that they might be able to rebuild their relationship. Sarah's response was swift and clear. She had no interest in reconciliation. The work she had done on herself had shown her that she deserved a partner who would never put her in the position of having to rebuild trust from the ground up. While she no longer harbored anger toward Marcus, she also had no desire to revisit a relationship that had caused her so much pain. This decision wasn't made out of spite or an inability to forgive. Sarah had worked hard to forgive Marcus, not for his sake, but for her own peace of mind. Forgiveness, she learned, doesn't require reconciliation. She could forgive him for his betrayal while still choosing to protect herself from the possibility of future betrayal. The experience of infidelity and its aftermath taught Sarah valuable lessons about relationships, trust, and her own resilience. She learned that love without trust is not really love at all, but rather a form of emotional dependency that can be destructive to both partners. She discovered that she was stronger than she had ever imagined, capable of surviving what had initially felt like a world-ending betrayal. Most importantly, Sarah learned to trust herself again. The self-doubt that had plagued her in the immediate aftermath of discovery gradually gave way to confidence in her own judgment and intuition. She realized that she had ignored warning signs, not because she was naive or stupid, but because she had been committed to believing the best about someone she loved. The process of healing also helped Sarah clarify what she wanted in future relationships. She developed a clearer understanding of her own values, boundaries, and non-negotiables. Trust and honesty moved to the top of her list of requirements. In a partner, above shared interests, physical attraction, or even compatibility in other areas. When Sarah eventually began dating again, nearly a year after her relationship with Marcus ended, she approached it with a different perspective. She was more cautious but not cynical, more aware of red flags but not paranoid. The experience had taught her to trust her instincts while also recognizing that no relationship comes with guarantees. The new relationship she eventually entered was built on a foundation of complete honesty and transparency. She shared her story with her new partner early in their relationship, not as a warning or a test, but as an important part of understanding who she had become. His response, sympathetic, supportive, and reassuring, without being dismissive of her concerns, was one of the first signs that this relationship might be different. 2 years after catching Marcus cheating, Sarah could honestly say that she was grateful for the experience, as painful as it had been. It had forced her to confront aspects of herself and her relationship patterns that she might never have examined otherwise. It had shown her that she was capable of surviving devastating heartbreak and emerging stronger on the other side. The experience also gave Sarah a deep empathy for others going through similar situations. She became a regular contributor to online support forums, sharing her story and offering encouragement to those in the early stages of dealing with infidelity. The ability to help others heal became an unexpected gift that grew out of her own pain. One of the most profound realizations Sarah came to was that Marcus's betrayal, while devastating, had actually been a gift in disguise. It had revealed fundamental incompatibilities in their values and character that might have taken years to surface otherwise. Better to discover his capacity for deception and compartmentalization before marriage and children made separation more complicated. The relationship she eventually built with her new partner was deeper and more authentic than what she had shared with Marcus. Having survived betrayal, she was no longer afraid of difficult conversations or uncomfortable truths. She had learned that conflict and challenges in a relationship weren't necessarily signs of incompatibility, but rather opportunities for growth and deeper understanding. Looking back, Sarah could see how the experience had changed her in fundamental ways. She was more independent, having learned that she could survive on her own and didn't need a relationship to feel complete. She was more assertive about her needs and boundaries, having learned the cost of ignoring her own instincts. She was more selective about who she allowed into her inner circle, but also more appreciative of genuine love and loyalty when she found it. The scars from Marcus's betrayal never completely disappeared, but they became part of Sarah's story rather than the defining feature of her life. She learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the pain never happened, but rather integrating the experience into a larger narrative of growth, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. For others facing similar situations, Sarah's story offers both warning and hope. The warning is clear: trust your instincts, pay attention to red flags, and don't ignore significant changes in your partner's behavior. The hope is equally clear: betrayal, while devastating, is not the end of your story. It's possible to heal, to love again, and to build relationships that are stronger and more authentic than what came before. The journey from betrayal to healing is never easy, and it's rarely quick. It requires facing painful truths about both your partner and yourself, making difficult decisions about your future, and doing the hard work of rebuilding your capacity for trust and intimacy. But for those willing to undertake this journey, the rewards can be profound: a deeper understanding of yourself, clearer boundaries and expectations in relationships, and ultimately the possibility of finding a love that is built on a foundation of genuine honesty and mutual respect. Sarah's story is ultimately one of empowerment and growth. While she would never choose to experience betrayal again, she wouldn't change the path that led her to become the stronger, wiser, more authentic person she is today. The pain of discovery gave way to the power of choice, and the devastation of betrayal became the foundation for a more intentional and fulfilling life. The statistics on infidelity remain sobering, and betrayal continues to be a reality for many couples around the world. But stories like Sarah's remind us that, while we cannot control our partner's choices, we can control our response to those choices. We can choose healing over bitterness, growth over stagnation, and hope over despair. In the end, the most important relationship we have is with ourselves. Sarah's journey taught her that self-respect, self-trust, and self-love are not luxuries but necessities. They are the foundation upon which all other relationships are built, and they are worth protecting at all costs. When we know our own worth, we become less willing to accept treatment that diminishes us, and more capable of recognizing and nurturing relationships that honor and celebrate who we are. The phone that had delivered such devastating news that morning became, in time, a symbol of Sarah's strength and resilience. Every time she looked at it, she was reminded not of the betrayal she had discovered, but of the courage she had found to face the truth and make the difficult decisions necessary. To protect her own well-being, Trust, once shattered, may never be quite the same, but it can be rebuilt in new and stronger forms. The china may be cracked, but sometimes those cracks let in the light, creating something more beautiful and meaningful than what existed before. Sarah's story is a testament to the human capacity for healing, growth, and ultimately, the triumph of authentic love over deception and betrayal.